fundamentally, let's come back to like all of this was taught by men, for men, by men, for men, by men.
Right. Something that resonated in their structures.
And even we've just like adapted our physical form into it. So I kind of try to erase that judgment of the body was first a man's body and we're just trying to be a man's body in a woman's form. I give a pretty standard class. The spine moves in these varieties of ways, and we're going to try to do these certain poses that encourage circulation in a certain way and discourage heartburn coming up into the throat. And it's all purposeful. A lot of it is linked to what the body's going to want to do in birth. And so you should probably have that in your body to be able to hold yourself up on your arms, to be able to lean forward, to be able to soften an area that doesn't need to be worked while another area is working hard. So those multiplicities, those dualities of noticing, all of that is there. But, you know, I have had moments I'll come in a room and someone's just doing their warm up, their yoga, and I'm like, bless. So, you know, I hope you stay, but
yeah,
you're attached. You're so attached. And some people are just way more athletic than I am. So what I offer isn't going to kind of scratch that itch. It's tricky for me to say don't do something to somebody who has a life experience in their body that I don't know. Mm-hmm. So it's all good. It's all good, but I think the community brings them and keeps them.
So generally speaking, are there sort of go-to poses, like your standard 5 favorites of I'm going to try to hit these every class and for these reasons?
Yeah, I think there probably are. I think I start fundamentally with circulation.
Tell me what you mean by that.
So 40% more blood volume when you're pregnant. That's predominantly plasma, but it's that much more fluid in your system. And then weight distribution, change of the weight just physically in your body because you're putting on weight and you're supposed to.
Right.
And also where the weight is going and how it's moving your structure. So since it's primarily happening at the abdomen, moving out into space, and then at the breasts, you're going to have a lot more kyphotic and lordotic behavior in the spine. So with the idea of fluid being something we want to keep moving, we want to keep the body in some sort of movement of that fluid rather than stationary poses. So you might hold a pose and really think about the ligamental systems and the muscle systems and this pressure at the foot and all of those kind of fun little, you know, Iyengar yoga things that you might do.
Right.
Static and stationary and solid. Those wouldn't be as useful necessarily in pregnancy because that volume is going to pool in the legs. That pressure of extra weight at the front body isn't going to lend itself to just being stationary. So always leading with the idea that we don't hold poses to get into that internal experience of the practice. There is more fluid movement.
So did you think that pregnancy is sort of naturally grounding because of that? And so then you're not working on grounding, or is that just a different thing?
That's different. I think you can still work on grounding, but a person who's for the first time in their life experiencing 20 extra pounds, their arches are flattening. When you're pregnant, you have a hormone called relaxin in your system, which is a hormone that relaxes connective tissue. The primary reason for that is the uterine ligaments. The uterine ligaments attach the uterus to the bony structure of the pelvis, but they wouldn't stretch unless this hormone was in the body, and it has to stretch, but it doesn't just stay at the uterine ligaments. It goes into all the connective tissues, the arteries, the veins, the valves that open between the esophagus and the stomach, the urethra, you know, it's just like everything is softened. So fundamentally thinking of like rooted systems from feet up. And again, it's just like, let's come back to like all of this was taught by men, for men, by men, for men, by men.
Right. Something that resonated in their structures.
And even we've just like adapted our physical form into it.
Right.
So I kind of try to erase that judgment of the body was first a man's body and we're just trying to be a man's body in a woman's form.
So does that mean the width of the stance might change more?
Width of the stance changes. Rarely put the feet right up next to each other. There is not a lot of head high, head low, head high, head low. People stand up from the floor when they're pregnant and could get a head rush just because that little bit of change of distribution of fluid instantly from the legs to the heart can cause a vasovagal response.
Yeah.
And then that change in the distribution of the organs internally. So as the uterus grows, it pushes organs into the back body and up. So the diaphragm itself can't completely flatten with an inhalation. So breath volume, people feel like they're short of breath when they're pregnant because of that tidal volume that's increased so much. So they're taking in so much more oxygen in their system just by being, but they also can't quite feel like they're getting a deep breath because that physical barrier.
Yeah.
And they actually don't need to keep breathing in so much. They actually need to release the breath more.
So it's almost like it puts you into like a pre-asthmatic state or an over-breathing state.
That's exactly right. That's how I describe it a lot. Is like when you're suffering from inhalation trauma, you need to get the exhalation settled.
Yeah.
So there are just a lot of those primary considerations that pregnancy changes. Now, for some people, it's a blip. Some people don't notice it as much. Some people have a strong yoga practice and can continue to do a deep inversion, can continue to do a hot yoga class because that's their preference. If you're just out in the wild, you do what you want. But if you come into my prenatal yoga class, I am going to have some markers of what I feel are more useful and less useful.
Yeah.
So it's more useful for you to get the feeling of that kind of release from the low back with a forward bend with your head higher than you would normally keep it. And that varies for different people. So we find those levels in class. We explore, I give options. Lots of props. People show up and there are props already set up. Lots of opportunities to understand why we do it, why it's useful, rather than something's been taken away.
Yeah. So would the props be to raise the floor so then you're not going as low or to...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. To raise the floor, to keep support through 4 points of contact rather than just 2, or we use the wall a lot. My studio, we kind of horseshoe the room. We use the wall all the time.
Yeah.
So
to offset the weight so that you've got these 4 points of contact. So your hands are touching, your feet are touching the floor, your hands are touching the wall or a prop.
Yeah.
So you always just feel supported.
Yeah. And your balance can be off when you're pregnant too. Baby's always moving too.
And ligament laxity.
Yeah.
Oh.
So fundamentally, backlying starts to become problematic after a certain stage in pregnancy. So
flat back lying.
Yeah, if lying flat on your back can cause another vagal response. The vena cava, which is a major vein that pulls blood flow from the legs back to the heart, is on the right side of the spine and can be compressed due to the weight of the uterus when you're lying flat on your back. And that also can be why people, even just in a little bit of a recline, can feel lightheaded, or if they're lying more on their right side than their left side, they can feel a little bit more lightheaded. It can reduce your oxygen levels to the brain, and you can feel like you're gagging or that your heart's really racing, or it happens with people who are obese as well, people who are very heavy, that pressure on the vena cava. So
would just elevating them or just avoiding
semi-reclining. So we also use the wall as a place to put the back. So a lot of times doing like a bridge pose, but leaning against the wall.
So how would that look? How would bridge pose at the wall look?
So your back would be against the wall.
Are you standing or sitting?
Standing.
Oh, I see.
Standing, and step your feet out in front of your body, but your pelvis stays at the wall. The shoulders stay at the back of the head. You can even do the same thing with the arms. It's a lot of times these adaptations are really great for beginners to try to help them get out of over flexibility, hypermobility into certain joints. I find this one in particular is good for people trying to understand what you're going to do with those arms to hug them under your back, because a lot of times people just really rip their shoulders to get them under their backs. But fundamentally, it's about the elevation of the hips, just engaging the hips away from the wall. And I use a lot of the term of hugging the baby with your abdominal wall muscles. So engaging transverse, the wraparound muscles of the abdominal wall, since the rectus abdominis is stretching, because it's designed that way. So again, a six-pack is not just a random muscle dysfunction. It's a six-pack so we can reproduce. So I'm just kind of thinking in terms of like, that's an empowering thing.
Oh, you mean the
say.
Structure of the muscle itself, the way it's set up,
It's for the female
designed
body.
to separate in sections to allow for this expansion.
Yes.
It's interesting because it makes me think of that diastasis recti and that sort of, that midline there that can split open.
Yes.
Which recent studies have shown that 100% of people who are pregnant and go to term have a diastasis recti.
Right.
And then it's designed to sort of split there.
It just depends on what's happening with the health of the structure underneath it. The
linea alba.
There's that full sheath of connective tissue straight underneath it. The
aponeurosis.
Aponeurosis.
Yeah.
That is the real determination of whether postnatally
it can repair.
That's going to be more fundamentally repairable.
Interesting.
Because some people have a very weak I can't say
aponeurosis.
That. Thank you.
Yeah.
Which I think is so important to know, because if we overstrain abdominal muscles by overworking them too, that can cause the same condition of separation of that.
I mean, this gets to like such a big concern for many people is the return to good health and stability through the pelvic floor and through their core postpartum. How do you address that?
Well, I think first, it all comes first with just understanding what it is, how it is, what it looks like, the relating of one thing to another. So pelvic floor to diaphragm, the breathing diaphragm, those diaphragmatic points of view, that's very powerful to teach people to understand. The diaphragm of breathing is the same as the diaphragm of the pelvic floor, is the same as glottis, is the same as, so like anything that's a bisection of the body that's helping us with gravity.
Yeah.
You have to understand in your body, just in general, what you have experienced in your life before you've become pregnant. You have a tight spring, you have a real loosey-goosey sail of a ship, or that's soft and too stretchy or too stringy, or all these kind of terms that people can get into a sensory experience of their bodies, not just, it's a muscle and it does this, isn't this.
Right.
But then the visual learning, I have an anatomy pelvis that has the pelvic floor in it with the pelvic organs, the uterus, the bladder, the lower colon. So I'll share that a lot in class, understanding vaginal musculature as opposed to what's happening at all the other muscles of the pelvic floor, the anal sphincter. I'm constantly looking at pictures of anatomy just to remember who's going where, how is that playing together.
Jane and I had a big conversation about the pelvic floor, and she felt very strongly that any sort of lift would have to come from the perineum, that it couldn't come from the vaginal wall and it couldn't come from a Kegel, which she thought was more forward than the perineum, and it shouldn't come from behind. And so I don't know if that kind of differentiation or languaging has been helpful for you and how you approach it with students.
Not necessarily. I think because that kind of links a lot more to bandhas, and bandhas don't exist in prenatal world. That's, again, a controlled thing. And I also don't know that it's a female body thing. I think it's more a masculine body thing because we have 3 openings. And so trying to fit the philosophy into the body. Me personally, I don't even know why you're trying. I think we should understand what the action of contraction of the pelvic floor, when it happens, when it's relaxed. Obviously, when we birth, it's actually relaxed and then stretched. So talking about a Kegel, again, kind of stepping back into that reclaiming the body from males. Kegel is a guy. He was a dude. He was a doctor. He named the pelvic floor contraction after himself. So I just don't even use the word Kegel anymore. I'll say you'll be asked to do your Kegels, but it's pelvic floor contractions. There are various places in the body that you're going to feel it in the pelvic floor. So when we're contracting, we can be contracting from front to back, pubic bone to tailbone. That's its own sensation. Its own sensation from sits bones to sit bones, because you have those transverse muscles. And then you have all of them at the same time, and then lifting, which is probably what Jane was considering, like perineal lift. So the perineum, there's no one universal answer to what is the perineum. A lot of times it's thought to be that place at the
juncture of that figure 8.
Yeah, the transverse ones.
Yeah.
And then deeper still, those domed ones, that hammock, when you relax your pelvic floor and then even push into it, that bulging that happens, that actually is necessary when we're doing something of effort. And I think we maybe are mistaken when we try to tell people to do the opposite when we're doing something of effort, is to do a lift and a hold, because we want to be able to push out into that dome and use those muscles in their forced experience, and have them recover. I will say, I have mamas practice this in the bathtub, because you'll pee.
Okay.
You'll pee and sometimes lose some, because we have so much dysfunction from tightness to looseness in the pelvic bowl.
Sure, different sections.
Because of how we sit, how we engage with our bodies, practice of yoga.
Yeah.
Trauma,
right,
embarrassment, loose abdominal wall. And so this is what we talk a lot about, not just like
it's a one universal thing.
Yeah.
So you're just saying, like with students, you get them more in touch with this rhythm that happens, that there's a movement that goes down with the inhale, up with the exhale. This is natural and good. And
to play around with it too, as I just described it too. Just like, what does it feel like to close from side to side? What does it feel like? What does it feel like if you're in hands and knees? What does it feel like if you're in a squat? And what does it feel like to bear down? Because that's going to happen. And the bearing down scares so many people because we don't want to tear. We don't want to have a pelvic floor damage. And there's actually very little evidence to suggest how we can escape it. Some people think it's just the luck of the draw of what our genetic coding is with our skin. Some people think it has more to do with the position of how you are in your body, that you can avoid a tear or any kind of damage to the pelvic floor when you deliver a baby. So there is a lot more engagement with pelvic floor prenatally in this generation of parents-to-be than there ever has been. When I was pregnant, there were like 2 or 3 pelvic floor physical therapists in the scene.
Yeah.
That we all knew about, barely any of us could get in to see, and it was all about postnatal.
Yeah, recovery.
And now it's prenatal. People are getting classes on pushing from their pelvic floor physical therapists. So it's an evolving field, because the people who are evolving it are the people that have the experience, not Mr. Kegel. So it's not a dude saying, oh, it's too tight. You can't have that baby because it's too tight.
You're too small.
You're too small. They check the size, the diameter of the pelvis. I'm like, you know that during birth, your oxytocin levels, the levels of hormones that stretch your ligamental system, go beyond. You can pull your legs out of the sockets, basically. I'm metaphoring it, but you can.
Right.
I mean, it's so soft tissue.
Yeah.
It's all soft tissue.
Right.
It's not great fun. Some people can have orgasms during it.
But to impose that as an expectation would be...
Well, it would also be giving people an opportunity to think of an other way of approaching that fear they have, that it's only just pain. Because there is a euphoric quality to it, like running a marathon and surviving it. There is a euphoria in the oxytocin levels that have put you into an altered state.
Yeah.
If you feel safe, if you feel supported, if you feel valued, and everything is going well.
Right.
Just like, what else?
Right. Of course, the conditions always have to be right for that to happen.
So whoever has the experience gets to describe how it was.
Yeah.
That's the end. Some of us wanted that as an idea. I really wanted that video of the women swimming in the Black Sea with dolphins birthing their babies. I wanted to be that kind of human.
Right.
And I wanted birth to open up that side of myself. And I've had a lot of dogma about how I've led from that point of view to try to get other people there. And I recognize that's what I need to balance. Because I just want the humans that are birthing other humans to not have to suffer from the experience for very long. I don't know. I don't want the suffering. There's so much to learn from darkness. There's so much to learn, but
it's not going to go how you think it's going to go.
No,
I mean, the birth.
I can't save. I can't. I'm not here to do anything but offer some ideas.
Yeah, we can have hopes and wants and dreams and wishes, and it's good to know the spectrum of experience that can happen, and then what happens will be just what happens. And
I still get really sad when I hear of a story that I think 2 or 3 things differently could have
changed it completely.
But
right. And I even went in with the best of intentions and had other people make decisions for me against my will. And I was powerless to change those once it had happened. So, and I feel a lot of anger about that still. That autonomy was taken away from me from my process. I feel very upset about that. Yeah. And yet this is what's happened. And
it happens continuously. And mothers primarily, because we are still frontline workers with how our babies get raised in the world, have to deal with that shit constantly. The medical system, the education system, all the system.
Right.
Sleep train, are we going to, like the number of conversations that come up.
And the choices feel so incredibly weighted that it's just the most crucial end-all be-all thing that will impact everything going forward. And maybe it does, but that doesn't mean that you can navigate that.
Yeah. Sometimes you feel really lonely, and you can't escape that feeling of nobody understands what you're going through, because you just have so much that you want to do right.
Yeah.
More so than ever before.
Yeah. And not even that nobody understands, but we ourselves don't even fully understand. It's so interesting how you go through a birth of your own to become a mother. At what point does that happen? But, at any point it could happen, but it significantly does happen through this portal of birth.
Yeah.
And then you're also parenting yourself when you parent the child. There's these births and deaths and raising and becoming that's happening over and over again, these patterns through our life cycle. All that in a yoga class. Talk about a lot of pressure for the teacher.
Yeah. It can feel like that. It can feel like an opportunity for people to have a profoundly different exiting of a room than how they entered a room. And that's that notion of beginnings and endings over and over again, or the rebirth of yourself. But complexity is as enormous as the simplicity of it. You just you don't have to know anything else except for that you just are.
Yeah.
And the qualities and the quantifiers and all the titling and the way we describe it and the way we tell our stories to ourselves and to our children and how we process it is usually always happening after the moment. Or if we're in a moment and it's not going the way we've written this book already, that's usually when there's the most struggle. It's usually when it's a forcing into a moment. And babies are going to be the first one to tell you, it's like, I don't know the future. I don't even know the past. So if you have a moment that you're trying to make happen here and I'm not going along with it, you trying harder and being mad at me isn't going to make me do it even more. So coming back to what these practices now mean for me, now that I'm attuning more and more with body work as a regulatory practice, not just a manipulative to get to a thing, to find the moment, to
optimize.
Achieve. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what you are doing is you are actually capable of change when you're incapable of thinking that you can change. And that usually is happening in a moment of discomfort, of something that's so dysregulatory. So you have to have a little bit of resourcing to connect. And connection is one of them. That's why the bonding of parenting is so amazing, because it is hormonal. And those hormones are different for every person, and they're going to come and go, and they can be interrupted. They can be dysfunctional. They can be horribly dysfunctional, but they can also be exactly what is needed in the moment. Let go of the trying, let go of the thinking, let go of the prescriptive way that you want to do this, and just be.
Trust.
Not even that, just be. Just like that is like, you'll maybe have the story after it's over. Like in my Baby and Me yoga classes, it's just like, am I a witch? I think I'm a witch. There are moments when I bring the lights down. We have a little dance party. We have like kind of this energy, a sharing, some stretching. I try to remind the mamas to tend to their bodies first, tend to themselves first, do what you can. It's going to come back later. You're just going to get little morsels of it throughout the day. Then we're going to come up. We're going to be kind of energetic. We're going to connect with each other. Everyone gets real. And the babies are like, and they're looking at each other. Then from there, lights come down, put them back down on the ground, settle, soften, body scans maybe. Maybe there are a couple babies that are like squawking a little. You can't imagine the 9 out of 10 classes. It's quiet. And I think that's with babies, parenting, because many of us just don't spend much time with babies, let alone a newborn before we have one.
Right.
When that baby cries, it is the hardest thing to physically endure.
Yeah.
And you try everything. Until the trying makes you crazy. And then there's no help. Both of you are in trouble, like moments of almost abuse to myself, to my child, to my partner. And the trying is what's the problem. And so it's not always easy, because you have to drop everything. You have to drop an agenda. You have to drop time and space. What if you're in the middle of a grocery store? You have to leave that grocery store. What if you're in a crowd?
And one mother hasn't.
You have to leave that crowd. What if you're in a plane? You have to make a bubble. You have to make your moment. And it's, again, even saying making sounds too much, but it's like, can you just let it all go? Can you just quiet? And I think because I've given permission, we're giving permission to people as their teachers, to try things. Yeah. And so I'm giving you permission to, again, just be messy in front of other people, witnessing you having a hard time. Last Friday, a mama, first time out with this baby, You could tell she'd put her cute little yoga outfit on. She had some makeup on. That baby would not stop crying. She was sweating. She was trying everything. She went in the other room. I went and tried to talk to her. Even that is just like, even telling someone, just like everyone goes through this. She's like, no, I have to go. And I'm like, okay, I get it, but please come back.
Yeah.
Please know that this isn't defining you. You're not embarrassing. Nobody's hating on you. Nobody's bothered by you and your baby. But that's the noise of the dysregulation of everything else is more important than actually settling. And so again, if we're working with a system that's so dogmatic, that is like good pose, bad pose, you're level A, you're level B, and you're level nothing, whatever, we have to be careful.
Yeah.
With how we hold these spaces. Are you coming into this class to get your body back? Well, then great. Then know that your baby's going to be disrupting that. You're going to have to parent at the same time, or you might just want to go to a class without your baby. But if I include the baby, you're going to sometimes get a pose in, you're sometimes not.
Yeah.
Maybe it's about strengthening your abs, but that's not what I'm telling you.
I mean, for me, I remember my baby aged out at a certain point, and I had to keep coming, and she was crawling around and leaving the room, and like, I
have a busy baby class now because
do you? Oh yeah, because I was like, I was desperate to not. I would, if that would to end, I don't know what I could have done to survive. I needed that space. I don't even care what happened in it. I just had to be in a space with other moms and other babies.
Yeah,
it was crucial.
It is crucial. And there is a lot to learn about the body in postpartum. There is a lot to learn about the reparative process. It's rest, recovery, repair. That's what I try to highlight with that time. And usually the rest is ignored.
Right, because it's very hard to rest.
Yeah, the recovery is...
right.
And then repair and rebuild. Everybody goes to rebuild first. And rebuild and re-strengthen and get your body back. And again, it's like there's no past in the...
There's no going back.
No, you can't. You can just... Why?
Yeah.
Why would you want to? You've just done this magical thing.
Right. You're forever changed.
You are a bigger
Yeah.
universe now.
Yeah. I feel like we have to have like 6 more conversations because there's so much that I want to explore with you further, especially about this recovery and especially about choosing to have a baby or finding that out that you are pregnant at this time in history.
Yeah.
And there's so much more we can dive into with the poses.
Yeah.
But I've loved having this conversation with you. It's been wonderful and healing and stirred up so many memories. And
for listeners, Sarah and I were in the newspaper.
We were.
And I have it framed in my studio. These pictures of you with Pasha and me with Nate, our little 19-year-olds.
We were pregnant 3 weeks apart.
And we had our babies a week apart. No,
something like that.
3 weeks.
I don't know.
I think a week.
A week, I think. Yes.
On the phone.
Oh, my goodness.
While you were laboring and I was nursing Nate in my chair. I have such a vivid memory of that moment. And
I was like, I don't need to go to the hospital. I'm here with my cats.
You had the kumbaya. I could even smell your house in that moment.
You came over to visit and it was so, I mean, like with your newborn, oh my goodness. And I had Pasha and it was my first and it was your second and you're a professional. But you came over, and this is before I was even a yoga teacher, and you had your newborn and you looked so tired. And that was the best thing for me to see. Because I was like, she's an expert. She knows everything. She knows how to optimize. And I was like, and she's human. She's tired. And it just helped me feel this permission. Like, of course I'm tired.
That's it.
How could I not be?
The permission. And isn't that awful that we have to look for that? That's secondary to it all.
Did I think? I thought, because they were like, oh, the baby sleeps 16 hours a day. And I was like, I'm going to be reading novels.
16 hours at 1 hour stretches.
Right. I mean,
no, but the biology, again, it's just like the things we don't share about how a human baby, I didn't even know. It's like, do you know that a human baby should not sleep more than 3 hours as a newborn? Because it's dangerous.
Wow.
In a stretch of 3 hours, if they sleep more than that, they can't sustain their calories because they're too little.
Wow.
So breast milk or any kind of food you feed your baby that's made for newborns is for that brain development that's rapid. And then you have a little air-breathing human now, but they never took in oxygen into their lungs. So apnea is such a massive part of the dangers of newborns not sleeping longer. And so, we get these new parents like instantly connecting to experts who write fucking books about training your baby to sleep like we train our dogs with treats. And the first year of your baby's life, you as parents should, as a society, be just taken care of and held. Like you shouldn't have to go run the hamster wheel. If we have the time and energy to rest, recover, repair, learn about our babies, learn about these newborns that are going to be newborns for a little tiny amount of time. And then by the time they come to classes, they're already kind of out of that time.
Yeah, what a time. Wow. And such a great time of life to have support and to have the gifts that yoga can bring when it's properly tailored and adjusted.
And I love that there are lots of different languages. People will teach this population in a completely different way than I teach it. And it's all welcome. I had to kind of make it up from thin air. There weren't as many resources. I had to kind of cobble it together from what I was learning in the birth world at the same time and kind of create that philosophy. It's lovely that it seems to be what it generally is now. When I do a teacher training, it's always nice to know that I'm sharing my version, my recipe. How they cook the food is different, but I'm always learning. I'm fascinated by it all.
It's interesting to age through your career, isn't it? We could have a whole conversation about just the evolution of how our teaching changes within our own bodies and how we feel about it, how we think about it. And the continuing education piece and how we feel about that.
I know.
And so I think that we'll pause our conversation here and definitely meet back up again.
We'll do more.
Yeah, fantastic. I've enjoyed this so much. Jenny Barron Fishman, Sweet Peas Studio, Chicago, Illinois. Of course, it's Illinois. You don't have to say that.
That's it. I love you, Sarah.
I love you too, Jenny. Oh, I feel so much better.
Just breathe. Just be. I mean, simple's best.
Yeah.
It gets extreme on its own.
Mm-hmm. Chop wood, carry water.
Yeah. What is that? First enlightenment, then the dishes.
First the ecstasy, then the laundry.
There's that too. Yeah.
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 Yep.